Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're doing something really exciting. We are literally going from a blank page to a breakthrough. We're going to map out the exact step-by-step process of using mind mapping to develop and refine your research topics. Honestly, this is going to completely transform how you move from just a vague, broad idea to a precise, highly actionable research question.
Okay, let's dive right into this. How on earth do you find a research topic that hasn't already been done 1,000 times? If you're watching this, you probably know the exact feeling I'm talking about. You're sitting at your desk, staring at this glaringly white, super intimidating blank page, completely paralyzed by the prospect of starting a brand new project. It's the source of so much anxiety, isn't it? Actually, as one PhD researcher pointed out in a really popular forum discussion we looked at, it's incredibly stressful just knowing that you have to come up with a totally new idea or a new question that thousands of genius researchers before you haven't already solved. You might feel like you're just drowning in this massive sea of existing literature, desperately trying to find an original, workable gap. But here is the secret. You absolutely do not need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to learn how to systematically navigate your way to the right question.
Now, you might fall into one of two massive traps right out of the gate. On one extreme, we have topics that are just overwhelmingly expansive. Let's say your topic is just climate change. Well, you're going to get literally millions of hits. You will never ever be able to provide focused insights with a net that wide. But on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, some students pick topics that are so restrictively tiny, like, studying the rainfall in one single village during one specific month, that there is simply no existing literature or data to actually support the project. You've got to strike a balance. A well-scoped topic offers both depth and breadth.
So how do we actually find that perfect sweet spot? Well, the solution is what we like to call the macro to micro zoom in. Now, a lot of people think firing up a library database search is the first step, but jumping straight into a database almost always leads to scope creep or just immediate burnout. Instead, mind mapping is the ultimate visual strategy to navigate your topic. Branching out from one central, really broad term, a mind map asks you to identify other ideas, terms, or questions that relate back to your initial topic. It basically allows you to start in this sprawling universe of broad ideas and then systematically zoom into a microscopic, actionable target. It's this awesome visual strategy that you can use at pretty much any stage of your project to continuously refine your focus.
Now, what's kind of fascinating about this whole creative process is that it's actually incredibly structured. It's not just random doodling. Step one, especially if you're working in a group or a class, is to make an example map on a whiteboard using a super common topic, something like video games or social media, just to get the hang of it. Step two is to map your own preliminary topic. Grab a whiteboard or just a piece of paper and put your core concept right there in the center. Write down words, keywords, concepts, search terms, events, questions, things you know, and, crucially, things you don't know. Finally, step three, share it with a partner. This is a massive step. Do not skip it. Verbalizing your weird web of associations to a peer actually gives you the room to explore and articulate what you're noticing about your own topic.
Okay, to really make that second step work, I've got a challenge for you, straight from the university librarians who actually teach this method. When you sit down to make your mind map, I want you to challenge yourself to generate 15 bubbles in exactly 4 minutes. Why so fast? Well, setting a strict goal in a rapid time frame forces those quick, free-flowing ideas onto your map. It totally bypasses that annoying inner perfectionist that wants to evaluate every single idea before writing it down. Don't think, just write. Get 15 concepts, branching off your center just as fast as you possibly can.
All right, so now you've got this wonderfully messy, sprawling map in front of you. What next? Well, you've got to interrogate it. Asking a few specific, guiding questions helps you extract what you actually need from the chaos. First, look at the branches and ask yourself, where do I want to start first? This just helps you narrow the overall direction you want to head. Next, ask, who is actually researching and writing on this topic? Are they doctors, lawyers, historians? Answering this helps you figure out exactly which academic databases you should be using later. Finally, look at the literal words in your bubbles. What keywords are emerging? Because those are going to become your actual search terms when you finally do hit the library database.
As you start identifying those key terms, you're going to want to do some strategic pruning, kind of like trimming a bonsai tree to avoid that too broad trap we talked about earlier. You can seriously narrow your research scope by applying specific constraints. For example, what is the geographical scope? Decide which specific country or even which specific region you want to examine. What is the time frame? Maybe limit your study to just a few specific years, or try comparing two distinct historical periods. And finally, target groups. Instead of looking at a massive topic like education broadly, zoom in on kindergartens or a very specific demographic. Imposing these hard boundaries is what makes your topic manageable.
So, here's the absolute crucial point. All of this zooming in, it has one ultimate destination, the research gap. A research gap is basically an area in the current literature that is lacking data, exhibiting weird contradictions, or just leaving big questions unresolved. If you want your paper to really stand out, your job is to position your research as the answer to a gap in current knowledge. You aren't trying to just repeat what's already known, right? You are trying to fill in a missing puzzle piece that your freshly zoomed-in mind map just helped you uncover.
Now, if you're pulling your hair out trying to find that gap, listen up, because here is an absolute cheat code from a researcher on Reddit. Go find some recent, highly cited review articles in your field and skip straight to their limitations and conclusions sections. You are looking for sentences that say something along the lines of, "Our study addresses X but cannot address Y. Future work should explore it." Authors literally hand you the exact gaps they couldn't fill themselves. Those sentences are unclaimed questions just waiting for you to build an entire project around.
Okay, so you think you've found your gap. You've narrowed your question down. Awesome. Now it has to survive the finer criteria. This is a rigorous little checkpoint to continuously evaluate if your newly narrowed hypothesis can actually be answered realistically. Ask yourself, is it feasible in terms of your time and your money? Is it interesting to you personally? Is it novel? Is it ethical to conduct without violating basic safety or privacy standards? And finally, is it relevant to current scientific knowledge or real-world problems? If your proposed topic fails on any of these letters, no big deal. Just go back to your mind map and follow a different branch.
All right, we're entering the final phase here, closing the loop. It's time to make that crucial transition. We need to take your highly visual, sprawling mind map, grab the concepts that survived the finer test, and structure the whole thing into a formal, searchable academic query. We're officially moving out of brainstorming mode and into rigorous, defined boundaries. And to do that effectively, especially if you're in the sciences, we use one very specific framework.
Enter the PICO framework. This is literally a game changer. It's a brilliant way to visually demonstrate how an overly broad idea gets sorted into a rigid boundary. PICO stands for Population, Intervention, Comparison, and Outcome. Let's say your initial broad idea was exercise and depression. If you plug that into a database, you're going to get like 40,000 hits. But if you apply PICO, your population becomes adults 18 to 65 with major depression. Your intervention is supervised aerobic exercise. The comparison is usual care. And the outcome you're actually measuring is the change in Beck depression inventory. By forcing your mind map's keywords into these 4 buckets, you prevent scope creep right from the very beginning.
Now for the really cool part. Once you've got your PICO question built, you can actually troubleshoot it just by looking at the numbers, specifically counting your database hits. If you run your search and you get over 5,000 hits, well, that's a symptom that your population or intervention is still way too vague. You need to go back and add a more specific condition or setting. Conversely, if you get under 10 hits, you've overspecified. Your population or outcome is way too narrow, and you might need to do something like broaden your age bands. It's basically a perfect feedback loop to ensure your topic is scoped exactly right.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. What is your central concept going to be? The blank page really doesn't have to be this intimidating monster. Research is a super dynamic process, and your adaptability is your absolute greatest asset. So I challenge you right now, as soon as this is over, grab a whiteboard, write down one single central concept that genuinely excites you, set a timer for 4 minutes, and start drawing those 15 branches. Your perfectly scoped research breakthrough is literally hiding in one of those bubbles. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy mapping.